in between. Okay. So today I've got a heap of stuff that I want to show, yet my overall recording on the creation of all isn't particularly great, so I'm just going to steamroll straight through everything at once. So, the first thing is a set of pants, but just to have them out of the way, I start off with. So the second part is an old white shirt that I dyed black and then I sewed a little rim onto it. Once again, nothing too great, but that will change with the next entry. So, a set of shoes, and to be honest, I really am quite proud of these. The design is based on an old Finnish birch bark shoe kind of thing that I found on the internet, which well, I combined it with a sort of Witcher-inspired pieces to make them somewhat more boot-like, I guess. Some, I don't quite know what they are called in English, but well, anyway, in the first iteration of this costume, I actually used birch bark to create something like these shoes, but the Dutch birch bark isn't particularly sturdy. It's a bit thin. From what I gather, the bark would be thicker in more northern areas, so it would lend itself better to use in a shoe. The shoe did have a reputation to be mostly used by poor people, this particular type of shoe, but still, it looks quite cool, I think. So the robe, this is one of the older parts of the costume. It's the oldest assembly was sewn together 2 years ago, and it has seen a few changes over time, so I'll just take you through them. The first iteration was actually white. At the time I was basing the look mostly off of the quest for the Kalevala comics by Don Rosa, and I also have a little hat from that one, and that still survives. I'll look for it. The second time I adapted the costume onto the style of Väinämöinen's Departure, the painting by a Finnish artist, I believe, actually Galan Kalala, if I'm right. Well, overall I feel that the look was not too inaccurate to the painting, but the fake beard that I then used, well, it made it look like Santa Claus, basically. Now this time I decided to go and well, stick to Väinämöinen's Departure kind of look, but overall the design is my own, so it's quite new and quite. I think it's quite distinct. So the belt, this is, it might be familiar if you've seen one of the previous parts in this series. I patterned the cloth a bit like I said I might, and I also redesigned the system for attaching stuff to the belt. Last time I used some wooden dowels, but now I have installed some steel wire hooks on the inside, and a number of them makes the whole system a bit more flexible. I can hang more stuff onto it, and I can position it more flexibly. And wearing the belt is actually more comfortable right now, because the wooden dowels that I used earlier, they were quite substantial, and they were really uncomfortable actually. These little hooks, they are just way better. The hat, this one has also seen some drastic improvements. It's also, I made this for the second iteration of the costume, but I gave it a bit of a redesign. The overall shape isn't actually all that much different, except for an extended point, which, well, I thought that would give the hat overall more of a wizardry feeling. Wizardry, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't know. The major changes, though, are in the detailing. I added some cords for the side flaps, so you can actually tie them down when it's cold, and I added a few patterns that I found quite nice. Also, bells. Honestly, I don't know why I added those, but well, it sort of looks nice, I guess. Now, the cape is also a part of the second iteration. It's probably one of the more similar parts. I haven't really changed it. I just added a little edge on the... and added a rope to allow a bit of a different attachment than just using the buttons, because it's really sort of warm if you just wear it around your neck. And well, it doesn't look like it's gonna be cold the next time I'm using it, so yeah, it's overall this costume isn't particularly great for hot weather, I think. Okay, so finally, I've got 3 more utility-orientated items. They could be left out, I think, but I like to be able to carry some small stuff without needing a small backpack or having to reach into my pants too often, as that's, well, not too easy with a long rope like this. Anyway, I do that, and I have this little pouch to begin with. It's, well, not really interesting, but overall it's quite useful, I think. Also, I didn't really like the idea of needing some water bottle and attach that somewhere, so I made a fancy little leather flask as well. That's not really all that little, actually. It can contain 1.2 liters of water, but yeah, it actually gets somewhat heavy, but all in all the belts distribute the weight quite. What I think is quite awesome in this case is how easy it was actually to make something out of leather and wire and wax watertight. It was, I will admit, it was a bit of a trial and error process, but it worked out in the end quite fine. And finally I made this little pouch with runes. I'll admit it isn't really in the theme of the costume, as runes are, as far as I know, actually more of a Germanic thing, but I found it somewhat fitting to make this, as Väinämöinen is a rather word-orientated figure, and in that aspect he actually has a lot of character overlap with the knowledge-orientated Odin, so well, I expect I'll put up one more video on this later on. Don't know when exactly, should not be too long, few days I think, but for now this is what I wanted to show, so that's it for today. If you're still here at this point, I guess you enjoyed it, so thanks for that, and hope to see you the next time.